Dan, Dan, take it away. Diolch yn fawr, Dan.
Diolch yn fawr, Rob. Well, pnawn da, good afternoon. It is wonderful to see so many of you joining on a Sunday afternoon or evening. If you are back in Cymru Bach, if you are back in Wales, it's lovely as well to see so many familiar faces. So croeso a diolch eto am y gwahoddiad. Thanks again for the invitation to present about the Welsh settlement of Jackson and Gallia Counties of Ohio. Now, on the Facebook post, Rob did call me an expert, and I am not claiming that I am an expert. And I think that what is so wonderful about my job and about the history is that I am always learning. And I will talk a little bit more about why I am always learning a little bit later on. So, like Rob said, my name is Dan Rowbotham. I am the director of the Madog Center for Welsh Studies, and we are a part of the University of Rio Grande Community College, and we are located in Gallia County in southeast Ohio, and we also have academic centers across the region here in southeast Ohio. As you could tell from my accent, and also Rob made it pretty obvious that I was not from southeast Ohio. I am from a small village called Llangeitho near Tregaron in Ceredigion. And what's great is I get to talk a lot about Ceredigion this afternoon as I introduce you to the history of the Welsh settlement to southeast Ohio. So, we're going to do some time traveling. And please, if you do have any questions, add them in the chat and I will answer them at the end. I could talk a lot about this subject, so I've tried to put as much but also as little into the PowerPoint. But I've also learned so much in the last few weeks that I haven't really managed to put into words and images. So that's another project as the semester starts to fold and come to an end here at Rio. So we're going to start back in Cymru, Wales, back in 1818. And we're going to draw our attention to the small village of Kilkennin. Anyone on here from Kilkennin? Anyone? Probably no one been to Kilkennin, not even have to drive through Kilkennin. It's very off the beaten track, but it is a small village in the Avon Valley in Ceredigion. Back in 1818, the county was not called Ceredigion. We're looking at Cardiganshire, Sir Aberteifi. So looking at Kilkennin, Cardiganshire, back in 1818. So right at the head of that pin there is showing where Kilkennin is. So we have Aberystwyth here, right in the middle of Wales. We have Cardiff down here, Anglesey all the way up here. So we're right in the middle of West Wales there. So, back in 1818, in this building here, the Ship Inn, Pennant, and of course, all good decisions are made in a pub in West Wales. So, that's what's going to draw our focus for the next couple of minutes. So, under the leadership of John Jones Tir Bach, John Evans, Evan Evans, Lewis Davis, Thomas Evans, and William Williams all decided that they were going to move to Ohio. Okay, so John Jones from the farm Tir Bach, John Evans from the farm Penlan Las, Evan Evans from the farm Tŷ Mawr, Lewis Davis, Rhywlas, the name of his farm, Thomas Evans, Pantwallen, name of his farm, as well as William Williams. So these 6 people and their families decided that they were going to leave Ceredigion. They're going to leave Kilkennin and they were going to move to America with a focus on moving to Ohio. So on April the 1st, 1818, 36 people left the harbour town of Aberaeron on the west coast of Wales to go up to Liverpool to catch a boat that was then going to take them to the east coast of America. But why are they leaving? Why are they going to leave West Wales? Well, There was a few factors, one of them being poor harvest in 1815 and 1816, another being increasing rent and taxes, which pushed them into immense poverty, an opportunity of religious freedom to be Calvinistic Methodists, and also the promise of a better future in the new world. So to go back to the poor harvest, the farmers, it is said that there was really bad weather, and because of the bad weather, they couldn't grow crops. If they couldn't grow crops, they couldn't feed their livestock. If they couldn't feed their livestock, they couldn't sell their livestock to have money in order to eat. Also, these farmers weren't owning the land that they were farming. They were renting that land. So as a result of all this was pushing them into pretty sad circumstances, really, regarding poverty. And they had heard that a group from Llanbryn Mawr in mid Wales had moved to Ohio. So Calvinistic Methodism, so it's combining Reformed doctrines, especially predestination and God's sovereignty, with Methodist emphasis on holiness, personal experience of salvation, and evangelism. And I was just reading a few weeks ago, and the three important things were great preaching, great singing, and revival. So if you go to any gymanfa in North America, that kind of tells you why we love a good song and why we enjoy some good preaching. So they left from Llanbryn Mawr in mid Wales, and they were heading to here. Well, a little bit north from there, really. I can just work out where I am on a day-to-day basis, but that I think is where Cincinnati is. So Cincinnati, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati, was a place called Paddy's Run. It's now known today as Shandon, Ohio, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But essentially, that is where the 36 people from Kilkenny were aiming for. They were aiming for Paddy's Run. They were aiming for the settlement that was already established by those people from Llanbryn Mawr. Well, I already mentioned that they went to from Aberaeron up to Liverpool, and this is 1818, and their boat wasn't ready. So 1818 is a long time before the Beatles. So there wasn't much for them to do in Liverpool, but they were stuck there. Their boat wasn't ready. Now that meant that there was more expense, and it was a very, very unexpected for them. Eventually, when that boat was ready, they got on. They made their way to Chesapeake Bay, and then by foot made their way to Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, then they joined the Ohio River. Now, they had purchased flatbed boats to take them down the Ohio River to Cincinnati. So between Pittsburgh and the city of Gallipolis in Ohio, there's really interesting diary excerpts, and one of them notes how they were very, very hungry. And therefore, they had reached out. They could see that there was this house just off the river. So they pulled up, they landed just off the river. They went to this house and asked, do you have any food? They were really, really hungry. And the people who owned the house said, well, all we have is watermelon. Now, I'm pretty sure there are people in West Wales today that still don't know what watermelon is. But in 1818, they certainly didn't know what watermelon was. And John Jones Tirbach wrote that watermelon was not fit for consumption by any good Welshman. And they didn't enjoy the watermelon, but it turns out that actually they had started by eating the rind, so I wouldn't enjoy that either. So further down the river then, they come to the city of Gallipolis. Wasn't really a city back in 1818, but a few years prior, back in 1790, a group of French people had established the city of Gallipolis. Now, the city of Gallipolis is about 12 miles away from me here in Rio Grande. It's right on the river. You look over the river and you see West Virginia. So they've landed in Gallipolis. They are tired. They've been traveling for months. They are hungry. And this is where the story changes. This is where we end up having the settlement here in Southeast Ohio. Now, a few things could have happened. And I am a theatre major. That's what my undergraduate study is. So I love the dramatic options that we have for what could have happened back in the summer of 1818. Now, one story is that the French were happy for them to stay around here, knowing that they were farmers. I think that's really important to note that these people who moved were farmers. So one story is that the French told them about 40 acres of land that was for sale for $50. And you're telling this to people who couldn't afford to buy their own land back in Wales. That's one story. The second story is that there was a really bad storm which destroyed these flatbed boats on the Ohio River, and therefore the flatbed boats went downstream and were found crashed up the next morning. Or, and this is where I kind of favour this story, after months of travelling, leaving Wales in April, arriving in Southeast Ohio mid-August, I think the Welsh women were done with travelling. And one story is that the Welsh women were done with travelling and therefore went out and cut the ropes, sending these flatbed boats downstream. I don't know which one, so you can make it up which one you prefer, but that is why the Welsh settlement that was meant to be expanded in Paddy's Run actually ended up being here in Southeast Ohio, going from the western side of Gallia County into Jackson County. So we're looking down here. So Shandon, Ohio, Paddy's Run. This was where they were trying to get to. If anybody has ever been, or if anybody is ever in the Cincinnati area, there is a historical marker that does give the history of that Welsh settlement. If you go to the cemeteries of the two churches there, it is very obviously a Welsh settlement. And there is also a Welsh bed and breakfast there called Plas Cadnant. So if you are ever in the area, I do recommend stopping by. But this is where they were trying to get to. The Welsh had already gotten there. They were trying to get there to make their lives easier. But instead, they ended up in Southeast Ohio. And when they were here, they did what the Welsh did when they settled anywhere. They built churches, they found work, they farmed land. And this area isn't particularly a coal mining area, which is often connected to why Welsh people have migrated. It was new land essentially, so they used their agricultural skills. They also helped build railways, build the road connecting from Gallipolis to Chillicothe, heading up to the current capital of Ohio, of Columbus. And that's it. That's it. It started to grow and grow and grow. And as it grew, there's a period known in the history in this area as the Great Welsh Tide of the 1830s, 1840s, where between 3,000 and 4,000 people left West Wales, left Ceredigion, and I'm only talking about maybe a 20-mile radius, if that, of the village. It's a very, very, very small area of Ceredigion, and they left for Southeast Ohio. So if we're looking at the map, we can see the county line going around here. And this is the area that I'm talking about, this focus, the area of the Mynydd Bach, the little mountain, this area above and around the Avon River. And in fact, I am from the area within the area that saw all of the migration. And growing up, I had no idea of our connection with this region. I had no idea of the history, of the stories, of the connection. And simply just by walking around cemeteries, which sounds pretty dire, but I do a lot of that, then that is where I learnt actually that a lot of this history pertains to the village that I grew up in, and therefore became maybe a little bit more interested from reading documents and seeing farm names from the village that I grew up in. So you have people moving to London, you have people moving to Merthyr Tydfil, you have people moving to industrial areas from West Wales, or moving to Southeast Ohio. If you're wondering about how they were communicating this, of course, you couldn't just Google how to get there. You couldn't ask ChatGPT for instructions on how to get a boat to get down the Ohio River from Pittsburgh. But interestingly, this document written by Reverend Edward Jones of Cincinnati, fantastic document. We have it here at the centre. Every time I fancy a little bit of a giggle, I take a look at it because it has things in there, like at the time how Cincinnati only had 35,000 people. And it also refers to Illinois, and it says, religion is not yet in very good shape here because the residents are as yet so few. So it really shows the growth, or the lack of growth at that time. But it was so popular, and this was being produced back in Wales. It was being printed in Aberystwyth, and it was first published in 1837 with another rerun then in 1840. It had instructions on how to get to places. It had the mileage and the path you should take from New York to Cincinnati. It had all kinds of really interesting things, telling you about different animals, how they use far more oxen in their farming than they do back in Wales. So many different things that I find really, really interesting. But the 35,000 people in Cincinnati is pretty wild, if you ask me. I think there's 35,000 people who are in Cincinnati Airport every time I visit, or it feels like it anyway. But this document then wasn't only telling people how to migrate to Southeast Ohio, it was explaining to people what to pack, how to save up money, how much money to save up, what to wear for traveling, all kinds of things. And it's a wonderful, wonderful document. So if you happen to be near the centre, I will happily share it with you, because it's a really interesting read, and is written far, far better than any travel itinerary or instructions you will ever get in this modern age. So they were leaving Wales, they were farmers, and they were building churches, they were building communities. And one of the first things they did, of course, was to build churches. Now, one of the first churches to get established properly was Moriah Church in 1835. So this map here kind of shows you the breadth of the churches here in Southeast Ohio. There are many of them that are still standing. And they form something that we have today here in Southeast Ohio called the Welsh Scenic Byway. But if you look, and we will focus on Moriah, because Moriah was the first one to be established, but it was Calvinistic Methodist. And it was from here, really, that the churches grew. So Moriah was referred to as a Mamni, or mother to us all. So you can see here the Welsh names like Tinros, which was built in 1841. We have Soar Bethania, Nebo, and it's great because some of these are names of villages also around the area of Kilkennin. Tinros, of course, is the name of the farm that the people who established that church were from. So I'm going to focus on Moriah just because this was that mother church. So with so many people coming, this was the first church that was established in 1835. It had 114 members, okay? And we had Reverend Robert Williams. He was leading the way. And what he did was, 1835, established here. Wonderful. Well, as more and more people came, He then also ensured that there were more Calvinistic Methodist churches being built around the region. So we had Moriah a few years later, we had Horeb. Now, the distance is pretty short between Moriah and Horeb, but they had to build Horeb because Horeb was right in the epicenter of where there were charcoal iron furnaces. So that was essential because people, the Welsh people, were getting jobs working at these furnaces. They needed to go to church somewhere and they didn't want to lose people to other denominations. So they had to make sure that there was a Calvinistic Methodist church right there for them. So Moriah, referred to as the Mother Church. You then see the spread as we go through here. So we have Peniel, we have Sardis, the Horeb that I was talking about. You have Oak Hill, Bethel, Bethania, Bethesda, and we also had Baptist churches and congregational churches as well. So as the settlement grew, and this really was the epicenter during the 1830s, 1840s, and as things developed, it spread even further as people began to find work, as towns were being further developed in the region. So some of the churches we have Peniel up here. This is Horeb. A lot of them are the original buildings, but have been modified. But you will see a lot of them have the two doors, one for the men, one for the women. We have Sardis. We have this here is the Old Welsh Congregational Church, and I will talk a little bit more about that because that is now the Welsh-American Heritage Museum. We have Bethel, which is still active. Nebo is no longer active. We have Tinros, which is very well taken care of, but not active. But there's a Gamanfa there every 3 years. There's also a Rees Across America celebration there every year. And there's also a family reunion. Peniel, I don't believe, still meet, but they do take care of it. Sardis and Moriah churches, they have come together to continue to meet monthly, both having weekly Sunday school. So a lot of this is still in existence. Bethel, that is still an active church. Ebenezer down here, that's not too far from Rio Grande, just up the road, maybe between 5 and 10 minutes. And that was one of the Baptist churches. And interestingly, that one really struggled as a Baptist church because it was in quite a rural area, as opposed most of them are in rural areas, really. But Ebenezer really struggled. And the people who donated that land said that that church was not to be given to any other denomination, so it couldn't even facilitate the growth of anything else that was going on at the time. So with these churches, and they were being built and where people were moving to and establishing smaller settlements within the larger settlement. But they needed work, and some of the work included iron production. So we are in the hanging coal iron region. So you can see all of these furnaces up here. So we have a couple of them that you can see. You've got Cumbria, and I have multiple pictures actually up on the wall here from the area around Cumbria. And then we have Jefferson. Now, Jefferson might be the most famous of them all because it is said that the iron that built the USS Monitor came from Jefferson Furnace. Jefferson Furnace now is just kind of within one of the state parks of Lake Jackson. And you can only see it you can probably see it now. We're very, very bare trees down here in Southeast Ohio at the moment. So we can see it, but it's pretty much in the lake, which was man-made in the 1940s, I believe. So if we focus just on Jefferson Furnace, this one was organised in 1854 by a group of 30 Welshmen. Now, the Welsh loved working here because they didn't have to work on the Sunday. They didn't have to negotiate to not work on the Sunday because Sunday, of course, was important. Sunday, they needed to go to church. They had to go mynd i'r eglwys, go to church. So, Just and Furnace never operated on Sunday. There are stories of people of Welsh people who lost jobs at other furnaces because they wanted to go to church, but they were not allowed. And Jefferson closed in 1916. And like I said, the iron produced here was said to have gone to build the USS Monitor. So all of these stories of the Welsh people coming here, working hard, building churches, being faithful to their churches, building these communities, educating their children. And I think I saw a question in the chat about the Welsh language. Well, the Welsh language is noted to have been spoken in the town of Oak Hill, in the village of Oak Hill, up until the 1930s. And a lot of that is to do with the Eisteddfod, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But you have a lot of stories where a lot of the Welsh wanted their children to become Americans and therefore weren't passing the Welsh on, which, I mean, you can be seen in Welsh settlements, Welsh communities all across North America. So I'm saying how wonderful everyone is, how hardworking everyone is. One of my favorite stories coming over to Southeast Ohio was learning about a man called Will Kevin Coch. But actually, I was relearning about this gentleman, Will Kevin Coch, because I had learnt about Will Kevin Coch when I was in my first year of middle school. So I must have been 11, 12 years old. And I was watching a series called Hirod Dyfed. Essentially the rogues of Dyfed. So Dyfed is an old county that came after the Shires. It then became Dyfed, which united three counties, and then it became the names of the three western counties today. So Will Kevin Coch. So, like I mentioned earlier about John Jones, Tir Bach, different things like that, people were named after their farms. So people couldn't own their land. People had it very difficult, but you had great big landowners who had these massive houses and the rights to all of the animals and could pretty much get away with whatever they wanted. So my favorite thing was being taken to the cemetery just a few months in when I started my internship here many years ago, and I will read this for you, and then I'll put it into some context. So, whereas on the night of Friday, the 27th of November, Instant Joseph Butler, keeper of to the Right Honourable the Earl of Lisbon, was shot dead by William Richards. William Richards being Will Kevin Coch. Of Kevin Coch in the parish of Llangwrddion in the county of Cardigan. The above reward will be paid for the apprehension of the said William Richards. The said William Richards is about 28 years of age, 5 foot 9 inches or 10 inches high, slight figure, long thin legs with stooping gait, light hair slightly curled, thin sandy whiskers, long thin face, lower teeth overlapping upper teeth, long nose, rather Roman, full grey eyes, speaks very little English, is supposed to be dressed in a dark homemade coarse coat, corduroy breeches and leggings, striped check shirt and lace-up boots, clumsy feet, and has been operated upon for a bruise on the testicle. Now, that's a very, very detailed search for a criminal at this point. So he shot the gamekeeper. He was trying to get to shoot some game so that he could feed his family, but he shot the gamekeeper instead. I don't think you can eat the gamekeeper, but anyway, he got caught. Right? They knew he'd done it. They knew he'd done it, and they had this whole description, right? So they are looking for a man who's about 5 foot 9 inches or 10 inches high. So what does the sheriff of Dyfed do? He makes sure that no man leaves the county of Dyfed. Smart. He'll never get out. How will he get out? Well, Sheriff, his friends could dress him up as a woman and smuggle him out, get him to Liverpool, send him on a boat, where he then ends up in Southeast Ohio, living happily ever after, and changing his name to David D. Evans and marrying Elizabeth. And he then died in 1921 and is buried in the CM Cemetery in Oak Hill. So for anybody who was in school at the same time as me, every time I go back to Wales, I'm like, do you remember that story? And they'll go, well, which one? And I'll know a few of the other stories at the time. And they'll go, I know what you mean. I know. And I'll be like, well, look, it's a picture of me next to his grave in Southeast Ohio with my family who came to visit from West Wales. Because, Welsh tourism, it's just not the same anymore. So we're learning about how people were getting here. We're learning about what they were doing. But the culture was far beyond just working and going to church. They were very social people. The Welsh also were very, very clannish. Where there was one Welsh family, there was 10. And that really built these communities across Southeast Ohio. And Ohio in itself has many Welsh settlements. You have Gwobr, Radnor, you have Youngstown, Granville, eventually Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and all of them had one thing in common. They loved an Eisteddfod. Now, an Eisteddfod is a competitive cultural event, so you would have competitions and that were adjudicated, so adjudicated competitions, poetry, music, singing, dancing. Essentially, today it's more of a celebration of everything Welsh, if you look at our national Eisteddfod. But the Jackson Eisteddfod and the Southeast Ohio Eisteddfod Association was big. It was well known everywhere. It was very widely known about, and it was something that was really, really important to keeping Cymraeg going, the Welsh language. It was really important to educate the children on their heritage, and it was really important to have that element of social as a social event. Now, of course, these people were going to church, and hymn singing was very much a big part of the Eisteddfod. The Eisteddfod would bring in people from all over North America. And here you can see a cartoon from a newspaper that was also used in Eisteddfod programs. Now, we have a whole collection of Eisteddfod programs here at the Madog Center, also at the Welsh-American Heritage Museum. But you can see you've got people moving down, and it says things here like, today is the day when some magnetic power seems to make all roads lead to Jackson. It's just saying how important and how much people enjoyed the Eisteddfod. And these are up on my wall. I love them. I think I'm going to show a couple more to you, but I do have more than I'll be displaying. So, with the history of the Eisteddfod, in 1897, they have the Grand Eisteddfod, and this brings 4,400 people together. That's a lot of people coming together for an Eisteddfod. I think communities in Wales would love to see 4,400 people coming to their Eisteddfod to compete and to be a part of it. So you have that tradition kind of going throughout the region. There was an annual Southeast Ohio Eisteddfod. You had the Jackson Eisteddfod. You had the association. And the Eisteddfod that was then brought into the schools in Jackson in 1924. So 1924, R.R. Thomas, who you can see here, he was recruited by the Southeast Ohio Association to work in the schools, to keep the Eisteddfod going. And I think at this point, they're just very aware that the language may be not as strong as it once was. A lot of the Welsh people, as the generations have gone by, possibly not as connected to their heritage. And you can see, you've got the medal here. But the Eisteddfod was huge, really, really important. And they took it into the schools, which is incredible, because it is still in the schools in Jackson City today. So we had D. Merrill Davis took over in 1938. D. Merrill Davis is known around Jackson in this region. He has a choir named after him, but he also further developed the Eisteddfod in the school, very much changing it and ingraining it as a part of children's experience in schools. So here we have a few more of these posters. Did he win or lose? It doesn't matter because he's having a great time at the Eisteddfod. I think we need that today. Some people can still be very salty about the result of the Eisteddfod today. And then we have a moment with the Cymry. No, this little bit here is important. The good nourishment for the Welsh language is the Eisteddfod. No Welsh community is without its church. The love of song is a natural inheritance of the youngsters. And it's great to see all of these. I really like looking at the programs for all of the old ads where you have Welsh businesses selling hats, going to eat at the Cambria Hotel, different cars from the time that are being sold. And I could spend hours just going through all of the ads. Also, ads for the Rio Grande College, as it was known then, and the few fields that it had. And even though we don't celebrate the University of Rio Grande as a Welsh school, the Welsh history is integral to the development of the school. And also, we used to have Eisteddfods on our campus, which is really wonderful to find out, and how the school continues to be a part of Welsh culture and heritage in North America. So with the Jackson Eisteddfod, right, and this is specifically not the one in the school, this was just the Southeast Ohio, and this was happening in Jackson. Now, 1928, they came together to fundraise to open a purpose-built Eisteddfod Hall. Now, this happened in 1928 at a cost of $28,000. And I believe someone told me that that's equivalent to about $750,000 in today's money. But then in 1930, and this is what I really like, in 1930, the National Eisteddfod of America and Canada comes to Jackson City. Right, that's impressive. But what's more impressive is that Jackson City, Ohio was up against Chicago, Illinois on having the Eisteddfod come to them. And we have the program. I have the program. I know you've got the PowerPoint, but I got the program as well as the Gymanfa Gani program, because the Eisteddfod always came with a Gymanfa Gani. So even today, we still have an Eisteddfod in the region within the city schools of Jackson. Unfortunately, we don't have a broader Eisteddfod, but I think there's a grant application in the works to make that a possibility again. So over 200 years of Welsh activity here in Southeast Ohio, in a region known historically as Little Cardiganshire, an area that is home to North America's only Centre for Welsh Studies, the Welsh Scenic Byway, and the oldest Welsh museum in North America. And today, so much of all of this history has culminated into heritage and cultural projects that keep the connection between Southeast Ohio and Wales, but also supporting different things across North America. So like I mentioned at the beginning, I am the director of the Madog Center for Welsh Studies. The center was established in 1996, and that followed a NASUC conference in 1995, which was the North American Association for the Study of Welsh Culture and History. At the end of the conference that was held here in July of that year, it was decided that that North America needed a centre for Welsh Studies and that it should be at the University of Rio Grande in one of the largest Welsh settlements in North America. So in June 1996, the university established the centre and named it the Madog Center for Welsh Studies. Today, we offer a study abroad program. I actually have 6 students in Wales right now. I think they're in Wales because they've been messaging me every couple of weeks like, hey Dan, sorry, forgot to tell you, we're in Dublin, Ireland. Hey Dan, I'm in Edinburgh. But this week I had 3 of them go, oh, we forgot to tell you, we're on a school trip in Venice. You're supposed to be studying abroad in Wales, but there we go. We also offer Welsh language classes, and I know we have a few of our students online today. So we offer weekly Welsh language classes, teaching the curriculum of the National Centre for Learning Welsh. We have Welsh culture and history lectures. We currently have one running in our community here in Southeast Ohio, which will also be available online in the spring. We have a Welsh language conversation group, and again, there's a few of those members who are out here. We have a Davis internship. So we are very, very fortunate, actually, that the Madog Center exists because local people believed in it and created an endowment for the center. And even after almost 30 years, we run pretty much entirely off of donations. And one of those donations is a scholarship from the Davis family. And that internship pays for a master's degree for a young person from Wales to come over and study for a master's and work at the Madog Center for Welsh Studies. That is an internship that changed my life, and that is why I'm here today in front of you, because I thought I was coming for 2 years to travel America, and I did some traveling, but I ended up shaping an entire career out of my Davis internship. We have a research library, which has now outgrown our main library and covers 2 rooms of our building here on campus. We work with the Jackson City schools to have an Eisteddfod. I don't know of any other school district in North America that does hold an Eisteddfod within their annual school calendar, but we work with them, and everyone in 5th grade learns a Welsh hymn. I don't know if you've heard of Calon Lan, but they all learn Calon Lan and they get the opportunity to sing in Welsh. We do multiple community engagement projects, going into schools, supporting events, all kinds of things. We also have a fellowship program where we work with a member of our faculty here at the university and get them involved in our programs, and we send them to Wales to research something that ties in with their field of study and their field of work. And that's great because that really means that we have more and more friends here on campus who are engaged and involved with our work. We manage the Welsh Scenic Byway, which I'll talk about again. We assist with the operation of the Welsh-American Heritage Museum, and we also support Welsh events across Ohio and beyond. And it's really wonderful to be able to support different things that do happen, such as this lecture series, the Ontario Welsh Festival, the North American Festival of Wales, and different activities that happen here in Ohio. And I did mention it before, but we are the only Welsh Centre in Welsh Studies programme in North America as well. So the Welsh Scenic Byway. So I should have put the map of the churches and this map side by side, but you can see the breadth of the Welsh settlement here in Southeast Ohio. So it's 64 miles long. We're one of 27 scenic byways in Ohio. So we are part of the Ohio Byways Link.
Britannia Road.
And what's absolutely wonderful is that we get to use this to market and to publicize our area here in Southeast Ohio. We get to contribute to our local economy here by sharing our Welsh heritage and sharing everything that we have. And it's not just about these churches. It is about the Madog Center. It is about the museum. Bob Evans was Welsh. So Bob Evans Farm, his homestead here in Southeast Ohio, is a part of the byway. We have in Jackson, we have the Cambria Hotel, we have the Lillian Jones Museum, and it's really incredible because it means that I get to work with people all along this byway and get to meet people. And share with them the Welsh heritage of this area. Now, a lot of people are aware of the Welsh heritage in this area, and it's great because we get to use this and we get to work with the state to develop this. So the state is in support of it. And as you can see here, as you drive through this part of Southeast Ohio, the red dragon is everywhere along the highway, in through the villages, all across everywhere. I hope no one from ODOT is watching, but we are getting new signs. But I can only get new signs if there's a problem with the old one. So if you are driving past, and you do decide you're going to steal a little, memorabilia from Southeast Ohio Welsh, then please feel free to take one of those signs, but make sure you inform me so I can tell ODOT that I want a nice new one to take its place. But these signs are everywhere. They are telling you how to get to different churches. In Gallipolis, even, we have a historical marker. Again, we're part of that wider network then of having historical markers throughout the region, noting places of Welsh importance. Only a month and a half ago, we added a new Welsh marker to Mariah to celebrate the importance of Mariah in Mamni Or, mother to us all. And that's really, really important that we have this recognition statewide and are supported by ODOT and the state as well. So this place is probably a place I spend way too much time at. I love this building. Now, this building is the Old Welsh Congregational Church. It's located on East Main Street in Oak Hill. And this is the Welsh-American Heritage Museum. It's an old church that is now a museum. And we're having a really, really exciting time with our museum. From recent donations, we've been able to purchase digitization hardware. So we are starting to digitize our collection. We've also just redone all of our exhibits after some work to fix our roof. We've also put in HVAC, which means I can go in there in the winter and not freeze. I can go in there in the summer and not just boil. So we're really extremely grateful for our donors who have supported us with that. And back in May, we actually found out that we will be receiving $307,000 from the state of Ohio to refurbish our windows and doors back to their original state from when the building was built in 1868. We also have a steeple up here. So we are going to be fixing the steeple and making it closer to what it originally was, to its original height back in 1868. We're also working on our ADA compliance and ensuring that this building can be adaptive for future needs. So if you are ever in the region, please do give us a call. We would love to show you around. And this is also where we had our Gymanfa this year. So I've mentioned the Eisteddfod, the Jackson Eisteddfod had a break because of COVID. But next year, it celebrates its 100th Eisteddfod in the City Schools of Jackson. Next year, we also get to celebrate 30 years of NASUC, so the North American Association for the Study of Welsh Culture and History. So 30 years since that then instigated the existence of this centre. And we also celebrate 150 years of the Gymanfa Gani here in Southeast Ohio. So this building is about to have a lot of work done over the next year. I'm trying to do and spend as much time there as possible right now. But if you are interested in all of the Welsh stuff, then it's definitely worth a visit down to us here in Southeast Ohio. And then Rio Grande, Ohio. This is the village that I live. This is where the Madog Center is at. This is the village that surrounds our campus. And I hope that if these few pictures show how proud people are of this region, of their Welsh heritage. Our fire and rescue truck is the Welsh flag. The Welsh flag is on multiple lampposts throughout the summer. Each street sign has a Ddraig Goch, the red dragon on. We have, I'm going to make the claim, the biggest cofiwch Drewerin in North America. We have the red dragon is on every police officer's badge, every police officer's vehicle. And also a few years ago, the university established a rugby program, which is great. Shame none of them are playing for Wales today, otherwise we could have won. But they also adopted a Ddraig Goch, the red dragon, as a part of their shield, as a part of their emblem, which is just wonderful to have, and to have the university acknowledging even further that its place and its job of supporting and celebrating Welsh heritage in the region. So diolch yn fawr. I hope those of you who knew a little bit about it know a little bit more. Those of you who knew nothing about it are encouraged to come and visit and spend time with us here. There are opportunities to do that next year as we host NASUC, the North American Association for the Study of Welsh Culture and History's conference next year. We'll also be the host of Welsh Heritage next year. And we will also be bringing Cwrs Cymraeg here in the next few years as well. So if you ever do get the chance to stop by, then there's a croeso cynnes iawn i chi. There's a very warm welcome. I always have some Welsh tea, and there's always Welsh cakes somewhere. They might be in the freezer, but you'll never know by the time I thaw them out for you. Ond diolch yn fawr iawn am eich diddordeb. Thank you so much for your interest. And if you have any questions, I would love to hear them.
All right, Dan, thank you. Diolch yn fawr iawn am y cyflwyniad. Thank you very much for the presentation. We did have at least one question here. Hugh had asked about the Welsh language and those diaries and guides, those things that were inspiring people to travel. I mean, I think these were written in Welsh, correct?
Yes, the early documents. So I was quoting an English version of the Welsh Traveller, but it was originally in Welsh. And it is in Welsh at the National Library of Wales back in Aberystwyth. So yes, very early on, everything was in Welsh, and I think it just kind of fizzled out a little bit. The denominations have major differences. To some extent, I think the Calvinistic, Methodist, and the Congregationals were more aligned. But what you see is in the early 20th century is essentially they all kind of changed a little bit. So a lot of them became, especially the Congregational and the Calvinistics, they ended up becoming the Presbyterian Church. So you had some that remained just Congregational. So there was all kinds of shifts between going backwards and forwards as well.
Gaines McDonald has a question for you. Would you like to just ask Dan?
Oh, sure. Hey, Dan.
Gaines.
Just real quick. So the families that you mentioned that settled in that area where you are now, were they? Maybe I missed this part. Were they the first Welsh settlers there?
Yes, so the 6 families were the first settlers for this area, but it's not the first Welsh settlement. They were trying to get over to Paddy's Run, just north of Cincinnati.
Okay, and I'm assuming Pennsylvania had lots and lots already, right?
Oh yeah. We got everywhere. We got everywhere, the Welsh.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing the presentation. I find it interesting because my maternal grandmother was Welsh, and she lived her life not too far over in Athens County.
Right. Yeah, and you see people, the spread of, as you know, as things change, as the settlement matured, you also see people spreading, especially like when you go up to Athens County, where you have universities. There's a lot of Welsh names if you look at people who graduated and taught at OU even.
Yeah, her maiden name was Richards.
There we go. Checks
All right.
out.
Well, Dan, do you want to put your email address in the chat? Because there are two people. Hugh Davies over in Wales asked about the location of Fairmount Cemetery. And then there's a question about the source for the account of William Richards changing his name to David Evans and that story. And I think if you wanted to, if you could send that to those people or have
Yeah.
them contact you,
Kelly,
that would be the best
if
way.
you email me, then I can share what I have on it. And here, Fairmount Cemetery is in the city of Jackson. It's right in Jackson on the western side of the city.
Do you have any recommendations, Dan, for further reading? I
I
can think of
do.
a couple of things. I'm sure you can too.
Yeah, we Calvinist Incorporated is a fantastic documentation of the history, but also what's great is it has at the back it has a list of a lot of the people who migrated to this area or through this area, and a lot of that research is housed here. We also have a lot of books that were written locally by local people here in Southeast Ohio, local historians that we have for sale at the museum, which you should be able to see on the museum website, but you can always email me. But things like history of Welsh settlements in Gallia and Jackson counties. And we also have the story of the Welsh pioneers. So this is the best kind of notes for those early settlers that I'm talking about from 1818.
Wasn't there a book about, I think it had 1818 in the title, that was just published a couple of years ago?
Yes, there was.
That's the one I'm thinking of, yes.
Ohio and beyond. So the Welsh settlement celebrated 200 years, and as a result, a lot of work, a lot of research was done to there's different bits in here. So here's where there's more history about Will Kevin Cork, those early settlers. But you also have stories from people who have lived over here. And I think someone mentioned David Morse, like David Morse's brother was over here. So from people who've been interns or students here at Rio Grande as well. So there's all kinds of different things on there.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Anybody want to bring it? If not, we'll kind of I have a few closing remarks. Do you have anything else to add, Dan?
No, there's a few who are messaging me. If you drop me an email, just in case I miss, if I don't manage to save the chat in time, if you can email me, if you are looking for anything specific, then I can see what I do have here, that can help.
And that email address is welsh@rio.edu.
Yeah, I've got a funny last name, but Welsh is easy.
Yeah, you were telling us about that in the chat group the other day.
Yeah, I
Um,
just say it's Welsh. Moved to Venedocia. I was up near there last year and I've never made it to Venedocia, but I do hope to get there in the new year.
well, I just have a couple of comments. My name, as you know, is Robert Humphreys, Director of the Great Plains Welsh Heritage Centre. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. A huge thank you to Dan for giving this presentation. It's very exciting to see all the things that are going on at the Madog Center in Ohio and at our center in, if you can just see if I can get this up here. All right. I'm hoping that this shows up here. Okay. Oh, yep, there we go. Except I don't think it's quite what I wanted to show you, but um, we are at the Great Plains Welsh Heritage Center. We're in Wymore, Nebraska, which is which is an area which was settled by a smaller number of Welsh people in the late 19th century. And actually, let me see if I can. Oh, that's the wrong thing. My apologies. I was just trying to show you one slide. So I'm going to hit stop share. But we have a museum, we have an archive, a purpose-built archive building, where we have become the depository for um, pretty much every North American Welsh organization, their records. We have historical manuscripts, a library, we have textiles, clothing, many artifacts. And we are actually currently trying to expand our building and build a purpose-built, exhibit space onto this, an additional exhibit space onto the side of our current facility. We are trying to raise a total of $175,000. We have already raised $55,000 through grants and private donations. So lots of generous people out there, and we're really grateful for it. You can go to our website, which is greatplainswelsh.org, to learn more about our museum, our archive, the activities and events that we have planned. And also you can become a member, or you welcome memberships. You can donate to the expansion, and we also welcome donations to our operational fund. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Again, it is what was your website again, Dan?
So you can I've got three. So welshmuseum.com for the Welsh Museum. You have the Welsh Scenic Byway, which is stored on the Ohio Department of Transport page. But also if you go on, if you search for Madog Center for Welsh Studies, it'll guide you to our pages on the website. So if you are looking to learn Welsh, or if you are asking siarad Cymraeg, if you already do speak Welsh and you are looking for opportunities to practice, then we do have those type of things. So if you're interested in joining a mailing list, for example, then we would love to have that.
All right. Thank you very much, Diolch yn fawr, and greatplainswelsh.org for the Great Plains Welsh Heritage Centre. We will have another meeting, another seminar next Sunday at the same time. We will have Dr. Wyn Thomas, who will be joining us from Wales to discuss the flooding of Cwm Tryweryn. So I hope that many of you can join us next Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Time. I believe that is about 7 p.m. in Wales. So diolch yn fawr. Siwmai, diolch yn fawr, Dan.